Okay, this week's assignment is going to be about diagnosis coding, but we're actually going to take it out of the charts, kind of get used to that process, because over the next 3 or 4 weeks we're actually going to do full chart audits where we're going to go through and we're going to look for all the CPT codes, all the diagnosis codes that we can find. Basically, you will be doing the work of a coder for 3 weeks, probably about 15 charts. So this is kind of to get your feet wet with the diagnosis coding and to get a good review. First thing that we need to know is that we can't take anything that the nurse says as something that we can make as a diagnosis. It's only what the doctor says or what the doctor states was from the patient, what the doctor found in the exam. This, on all the charts that I have, this stated reason for visit, that is all taken from the nurse. This entire intake section is for the nurse. Now we can use parts of this for the E&M coding, but that's CPT, not diagnosis. So I'm just going to go through this one and you can see how I do it. Okay, so I see lightheadedness. That is a complaint, so I'm just going to copy that down. Lightheaded and faint, those two go together, so I don't need to worry about faint. I just had to stay in bed and not do very much. Started a period 3 days ago, passing large clots, feeling tired. Usually bleeds says so this isn't anything, doesn't seem anything abnormal. I feel like how I felt when I was really anemic. Just trying to lose weight. No fevers, feel slightly nauseous, that's new. And feels very thirsty, drinking lots of water. Slight headache. Not urinating more than usual. Notice that I'm skipping over the knots. We can't code a diagnosis for something that doesn't exist. And family history of diabetes in the grandpa. Any history codes, there is a good possibility that there will be a V code for that. For some of these you may find major problems and you'll find a whole list of things underneath the major problems. Do not code those. We are not addressing those in that visit. There's an acronym that you can remember. I'm going to write it out here. MEAT, M-E-A-T, stands for monitor, evaluate, assess, or treat. Anything that a physician does with those 4 things, that's what we're going to code a diagnosis for. There's no, with a lot of these, there's a whole list of problems, but we're not monitoring any of them, we're not evaluating any of them, assessing or treating them. If they're mentioned in the subjective proper, then we're doing usually one of those 4 things. Just a heads up for when that comes up. Okay, so I've gone through the subjective. Now I'm going to go through the objective. Sometimes you'll find things that aren't related to what the physician found in the subjective in his discussion with the patient. That's okay. Those actually need to be coded as well. Anything that is a sign or a symptom, we need to code. The only time we wouldn't code it is if it's rolled up into another thing. So if somebody has, say, a snuffy nose and plugged ears, well, those are 2 signs that are related to upper respiratory infection. And so we wouldn't code runny nose and stuffed ears because we've already coded the upper respiratory infection. Something that you may not think of, though, is that upper respiratory infection does not include a cough, which is part of the lower respiratory tract, and so we would actually need to code that separately. So I'm going to go through the objective here. Nothing out of the ordinary so far. Okay. Lightheadedness. So now we're in the assessment and plans. This is the definite stuff. Okay, whatever is here, that is definitely what we're going to code. What I want you to be careful of are phrases like most likely probably, perhaps. So, because this physician has said lightheadedness most likely due to volume depletion and poor food intake, we cannot code volume depletion and poor food intake. Okay? It says that pregnancy, diabetes, UTI, anemia are unlikely, and so we're obviously not going to code that. And then we go through the labs. We already grabbed lightheadedness. That's for something different. Okay. So you'll notice, however, that in the assessment, okay, I've got lightheadedness, but I've got a couple of others that weren't even mentioned in the assessment that are mentioned up in the subjective. We need to code those. Even though the physician hasn't put them down in the assessment, they are part of the entire chart, and that's what we're responsible for coding. Okay. Now I forgot my ICD-9 book, so I'm kind of taking a unique way of doing this. I found a app for my phone called Educus. I think that's how it's pronounced, Educus. I found it to be pretty good for the most part. The one thing I don't like about it is that it will give you kind of like, if there's a 462.10 or 616.10, it'll give you 616.1 and 616 as well. So you kind of have to double check your codes. I just put in lightheadedness and there's nothing there, so I'm just going to look under light. This is analogous to looking through your index. I don't think... Oh, there it is. So possible one here is 780.4. Nauseous. N-A-U-S. Okay, I've got nausea and vomiting, nausea with vomiting, and nausea alone. So possible 787.02. Very thirsty. There's probably not going to be a code for very thirsty, at least not under very. So I'm just going to look up under thirst. I have effects of thirst, excessive thirst in childhood. Actually, you know what? It didn't come out and say it, but I believe polydipsia is excessive thirst. But I don't really see polydipsia in childhood. So I'm going to look up at that one using a different site. So just as a FYI, never leave your home without your ICD-9 book or your CPT book. Okay, under headache, tension, I just want a regular headache because the headache wasn't actually connected to anything. Rebound headache, 784.0. And family history of diabetes. So try family. Family history of diabetes. V18.0. Just so that you know, kind of as a hint for watching the video, there is no V codes. There are no V codes in the assignment. Okay, so lightheadedness was 780.4. 780.4. 2, 3, 4. Sir sense is revolving. Okay, that looks pretty good to me. So that's a definite. Nausea 787.02. Nausea alone. Headache 784.0. That's good. And then family history of diabetes. So V18.0. Family history of diabetes. So that looks good. And then I wanted to look up polydipsia and see what I could find. Polydipsia 783.5. Just to make sure I have the definition. Excessive intake of water. Excessive drinking behavior by operant schedules, reinforcement following food. Yeah, that'll work. So 783.5. Okay, so I have 5 diagnosis codes here. Just as a hint, you might also want to get in the habit of making sure that your V's are capitalized. I haven't run across it yet, but it is possible that Kia could mistake that for a wrong answer. I don't think it will, but just on the off chance. So there I have 5 diagnosis codes going through one chart. You only have 5 charts to do this week, and while that may seem like a small amount, because you're only going to go through each one once, while that may seem like a small amount, it actually adds up for a long time, because you probably spend one night, an hour a night easily doing one chart, if not 2. So just a heads up, manage your time wisely, and then also don't forget that this Tuesday is our get-together student Q&A. Bring your questions, bring your reference books, and we'll see if we can get it. I know people had a lot of questions on the medical decision making, not as many as the exam, thankfully, but want to address those, make sure you guys understand and comprehend it. So until next time.